Shower of toys for Turkey's earthquake survivors. Mayor Adams announces appointment of Mohammed Faridi. Legacy of Wounded Knee uprising lives on 50 years later. FBI Energy Department, Chinese lab leak responsible for Covid-19. Palestinians count cost of Israeli reprisals in West Bank. Afghan refugees in Pakistan protest delay in resettlement. Prominent Orthodox-Turned Catholic priest accepts Islam. A special report on shower of stuffed toys. From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. Fans of Turkey's football club showered thousands of stuffed toys on the field in a symbol of solidarity with children who survived the country's devastating earthquake this month. Sunday's football game at Istanbul Stadium was paused at 4 minutes 17 seconds after the kickoff. It was in memory of the earthquake which struck at 4:17 a.m. local time on February 6th. We have a special package to share with you about this joy of sharing, so stay tuned.
The positive Muslim contributions to our world are rarely reported on by media. Whether it's the development of a COVID-19 vaccine or Muslims rushing to help in the tragic earthquake in Turkey and Syria, these good deeds of everyday Muslims often go unnoticed. Within the first 5 days of the February 2023 earthquake, American Muslims raised $100 million in aid, far before U.S. aid reached a similar amount. Muslim governments and civilians from around the world came to help. So many Turkish citizens themselves loaded supplies on their own vehicles to assist that it created a 50-mile traffic jam. But nothing beats the loving gesture of these football fans, supporters of Besiktas and Antalyaspor in Istanbul. A hashtag social media campaign went viral for the February 26th match. Fans arrived at the stadium carrying stuffed toys. At exactly 4:17, the time the earthquake devastated southeastern Turkey and northern Syria, fans showered the stuffed toys on the football pitch in a show of solidarity with children affected by the quake. Dolls of all colors, sparkling unicorns, fuzzy rabbits, monkeys, elephants, stuffed emojis, and fish-shaped pillows all flew down on the field. Other fans threw scarves and hats, donations they hoped would keep those displaced by the disaster warm amid harsh winter weather. The scene was hailed as incredibly moving by many who watched the footage online. Sidelines of the stadium at Vodafone Park were knee-high in plush toys and large teddy bears gathered up to be distributed among children who survived the earthquake. Modest estimates suggest that over 47,000 people were killed across Turkey and Syria after the two powerful earthquakes in early February. An estimated 93,000 buildings were destroyed, leaving hundreds of thousands injured and homeless.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams on Monday announced the appointment of Mohammed Faridi as the independent civilian representative to the NYPD's Handschuh Committee. The Handschuh guidelines regulate the police force's behavior related to investigations of political activity. The committee provides critical oversight in ensuring compliance, including when the NYPD opens or extends investigations into such activity. Faridi is the first Muslim American to be appointed to the role. He replaces former U.S. District Judge Stephen Robinson of the Southern District of New York, who served as the city's first independent civilian representative. Adams said Faridi is an experienced litigator who has served as the chair of the executive committee of the New York City Bar Association and the Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Judiciary. A student in Hardin County, Kentucky was suspended last fall following an incident where another student attempted to remove her hijab. The punishment was harsher than what was given to the boy who initiated the confrontation, the girl's mother and the Council on American Islamic Relations have said. Kenesha Turner Wright said her 14-year-old daughter was suspended for 3 days after the October 25th incident. Wright added that the other student involved was back in class at James T. Alton Middle School the next day. She said the incident remains on her daughter's permanent record, forcing her to miss school events. CAIR called the case a possible hate crime. The group said Wright was able to privately view a video of the incident, though it did not include audio. Wright believes the audio is available because school personnel told her what was said. CAIR has pushed the school district to reevaluate disciplinary actions against the student and expunge her record. Native Americans on Monday marked the 50th anniversary of the occupation of Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Participants in the 1973 Uprising and other activists linked the deadly revolt to modern-day indigenous resistance from Standing Rock to the Land Back movement. On February 27, 1973, around 300 Oglala Lakota and members of the American Indian movement occupied the hamlet of Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation for over 2 months. The uprising recognized centuries of injustices, ranging from genocide to leniency for whites who committed crimes like torture and rape against Indians. Some of the participants 50 years ago had been raised by grandparents who remembered or survived the 1890 massacre of more than 200 Lakota men, women, and children by U.S. troops at Wounded Knee. The 1973 uprising occurred during a period of increased Native American militancy and the rise of the American Indian movement. The U.S. Department of Energy has changed its assessment of COVID-19's origins. The agency now rates a laboratory accident ahead of a natural spillover event as a suspected starting point. Its conclusion matches findings from the FBI and a Senate minority report from last fall that called the pandemic more likely than not the result of a research-related incident. However, the new assessment does not match up with the findings of other federal government agencies. In mid-2021, President Joe Biden asked the U.S. intelligence community for a 90-day review of the pandemic's origins. The response was divided. 4 agencies and the National Intelligence Council guessed COVID started with a natural exposure to an infected animal. 3 agencies could not decide on an answer, while one blamed it on a laboratory accident. Palestinians count cost of Israeli reprisals in West Bank. Details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Palestinians in the occupied West Bank on Monday counted the cost of deadly violence and arson by Israeli settlers targeting a town where 2 Israeli brothers were killed. That violence came days after Israeli forces launched their deadliest West Bank raid in nearly 20 years. It claimed the lives of 11 Palestinians in the nearby city of Nablus. Dozens of Israeli settlers set homes and cars ablaze in the northern town of Huwara overnight. It followed a day of Israeli-Palestinian talks in neighboring Jordan aimed at quelling a surge in violence in the Palestinian territory. More than 350 Palestinians were injured, most suffering from tear gas inhalation, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society said. Sameh Akhtash, 37, was shot dead during an attack by Israeli forces and settlers on the nearby village of Zatara, the Palestinian Health Ministry said. The violence came hours after 2 Israeli settler brothers were shot dead on Sunday. Many Sub-Saharan African migrants in Tunisia are now leaving the country because they no longer feel safe amid a climate of fear. After a wave of arrests in recent weeks, President Kais Saied gave a speech Tuesday that critics said was openly racist. Saied ordered officials to take urgent measures to tackle irregular migration. He claimed without evidence that a criminal plot was underway to change Tunisia's demographic makeup. Critics viewed Saied's comments as inciting violence against Sub-Saharan Africans living in Tunisia legally or illegally. Abu Bakr Dobe, head of a radio station for French-speaking migrants, said it was clear that things are different in Saied's speech. The head of Radio Libre Francophone said he had received threatening phone calls. The African Union also expressed concern after Saied's remarks on migrants, urging the country to avoid racialized hate speech. Malaysia has deported 114 Burmese Muslim nationals who face persecution by the ruling military when they returned, their lawyers said on Thursday. Amnesty International Malaysia said Kuala Lumpur returned the nationals who are not Rohingya to their war-torn country. Among those deported are children whose rights are being breached, Lim Wei Jet, a lawyer appointed for the Burmese nationals by Amnesty, said. That's despite Malaysia condemning the Burmese junta's violence against its own people. Jet said the Burmese military ostracizes Muslims. The military junta ousted an elected government in February 2021. Malaysia is not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention. According to the principle of non-refoulement, people cannot be sent back to a country where they are likely to be persecuted, tortured, mistreated, or have their rights violated. A recent report published by The Conversation has revealed shocking details about institutional Islamophobia in Canada. The report cited the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS, as the main culprit for aggressively victimizing Muslims. It claims the targeted campaign is likely driven by intelligence agents linked to Israel. Muslims critical of Canada's pro-Zionist policies have been specifically singled out, it alleges. People who are politically active and critical of the Canadian government were at higher risk for interrogation, the report said. The study also found people who criticize state policies, particularly concerning politics in the Middle East, come under increased surveillance. Investigators interviewed scores of Muslim community leaders across 5 major Canadian cities about their treatment by CSIS. They found a wide variety of anti-Muslim tactics deployed by the government agency. The Conversation is an Australia-based network of nonprofit media organizations. U.S. presidential hopeful Nikki Haley's proposal to require competency tests for politicians over the age of 75 is gaining support. A Fox News poll shows 75% of Americans back the idea. Haley, a Republican, is now turning her attention to Pakistan and foreign aid. She tweeted this week that she wants to end U.S. aid to Pakistan because she says it harbors terrorists trying to kill American soldiers. She also called for cuts in aid to Iraq and Zimbabwe, calling the 3 nations the bad guys. The Fox News poll also found Haley is trailing far behind former President Donald Trump. 43% of Republican voters would like to see Trump as the party's nominee, while 28% backed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Haley and former Vice President Mike Pence each received 7%. Hundreds of Afghan refugees facing delays in the approval of U.S. visas protested in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, on Sunday. An American program to help relocate at-risk Afghans fleeing Taliban rule has stalled. The U.S. government's Priority 1 and Priority 2, known as P1 and P2 refugee programs, were meant to fast-track visas for at-risk Afghans. That includes journalists and rights activists seeking a way out after the Taliban's takeover of their homeland in August 2021. Those eligible must have worked for the U.S. government, a U.S.-based media organization, or non-governmental organization in Afghanistan. They must also be referred by their U.S.-based employer. Applicants have been waiting in Pakistan for more than a year and a half for U.S. officials to process their visa applications. Father Hilarion Hagee, a prominent U.S.-based Eastern Catholic priest, has converted to Islam. Hagee, who lives in California, said of his decision that it was like coming home. He was previously Russian Orthodox, having joined the Antiochian Orthodox Church around 2003. He left that church in 2007 and switched to the Eastern Catholic Church. Hagee graduated from the Holy Resurrection Monastery in St. Nazianz in Wisconsin. He became a Byzantine Catholic priest and had recently announced plans to establish an Eastern Christian monastery in California. In a blog post, Hagee, who is now known as Saeed Abdul Latif, said he decided to take the plunge after decades of feeling drawn to Islam in varying degrees. He said one simply can't be a priest and monk publicly and a Muslim privately. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.